There is nothing like an August Sunday morning. And hopefully there's nothing like the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott. A to Z podcast.com, facebook.com/A to Z podcast. Presented as always by Scene, by the Honeymoon Grill. I stuffed my fat face there on Friday and Saturday. Really good life decision making by me in a rare case. And by American Fireworks, the fine folks at AmericanFireworks.com who support our Glory Days segment. Hi, Andre.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. It hasn't been super hot. The days are getting noticeably shorter, a little at a time. It kind of feels like football, doesn't it?
Slowly but surely, it does. I haven't been able to pay attention to how long or short days are, just because all my days run together.
Right.
But it obviously,
and that has nothing to do with you working in baseball.
Yeah. It actually does, but I can't keep up. I can't keep up with that part of it at all. But you can tell there's other interest at the ballpark as games are going on now. Usually, the first half of the season is the NBA playoffs, but usually when that other season comes to the end, football becomes a conversation throughout the day. Whether it be high school football talk, when someone talks up their school, and then throughout it has to be what's going on with Ohio State every 5 minutes. That's just what we talk. We talk about everything but what we're at every day. And then we talk about preseason football and how the hell there's lines on preseason football games. But that's nor here nor there. But let me say this. This is Sunday as we record this. How does the Ohio State situation play out? And have you been we had a conversation when this all first happened. And we were pretty strong without having all the information, without knowing all the characters, without knowing all the characteristics of the characters. It's probably the last time we're going to speak on this and talk about this before there's a decision of some sort made. And I will say that I probably don't feel nearly as strong as I did the day we are all sitting back on my back deck.
Right.
And not that we knew there was going to be some information that was going to come out that was going to change us a little bit. But I tell you what, if the job of Brett McHenry or McMurphy or whatever his name was, or anybody else that's out there with
you confused him with Brett McHenry.
It's all the same to me, brother.
Well, no, she is one of the ultimate trash balls, so please do Brett McMurphy a service. Yes.
I will do Brett McMurphy a service, and I don't want to kill the guy, but at certain points in times, I just think he's went above and beyond to kill Zach Smith's character, and I think Zach Smith has done enough to do that to himself. I'm raising my hand. I'm raising my hand and asking, what is the accomplishments that he's trying to get at? We know the guy has not been a good person. We can gather that from a lot of different things. I just think the smear program or the campaign that he's gone on against him, it almost seems a little personal. And I think in our jobs as journalists, it never should be personal. That's just my personal feelings. Yes, your job is to give information. Yes, your job is to tell a story. But I just feel like in certain parts it's gotten to a point of just, uncle, we get it. Do we need to know every single thing that was ever sent to him? Do we need to know that, nude pictures at the White House or wherever else? Do we really need to know that at this point in time? Does that change anything in the beginning of what he started writing? I don't see the connection.
Yeah, I would say no in that regard, but I would say the one in speaking about the bits of evidence and just the direct way to end up on Deadspin stuff, right, that came out.
Right.
I would say the one thing that does matter, Dre, would be the doing things in the office because it paints a picture of a guy who was so blatantly out of control and on this power trip and thought he was invincible, right? And we have multiple incidents.
Well, I can go off of that, but at the same time, I think what the story started with, just because a guy, it's like, are we trying to accuse him? Are we trying to be the jury and the judge? Like, I'm not standing up for Zach Smith. It's obvious he has some character issues he needs to deal with. But this started with talking about the altercation between his ex-wife and he. And however far that went, and it's he say, she say, I'm not judging that. And that's like, okay, that's not a good situation. I can go off of what we would see him do on Twitter. I can go off of different things that we knew prior. To me, it's just kill the kid's character as bad as we can because you don't have anything else on the head coach. I don't know.
Well, okay. Let me say this.
What's his end game? What's his end game on Zach Smith?
I don't know the answer either. Right. It's supposed to be turned in today and maybe Wednesday. Right. We're going to get the answer from the Ohio State president. Okay. I think part of the reason it's gone away is because there hasn't been any new on Urban Meyer, and this is an investigation into Urban Meyer with many tentacles and involving other people. But it's what did he know? What was he allowing to go on in his program? Right.
Right.
And truthfully, like I said, I really am not going to be surprised by any outcome when it comes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when it does. I want to say this. I think Ohio State has handled this very well. I think the right thing is administrative leave, step back, and do this. I mean, because we haven't talked about this since it was, 2.5 weeks ago,
right,
first break.
Right.
Form the committee, tell them to take their time to talk to people. Let's get this right. I think that's right. I think Urban Meyer State, this is the one side I'll take here because I know you guys listen to people say I don't know on the radio all the time and it's bad. I think Urban Meyer's statement to me read like a guy who was posturing for a better buyout rather than a guy trying to get his job back, realizing that he was doomed. That's just how I read it.
Originally, I may have a little bit. I think what's happened with everything else is just if the character, what's been written and when Zach Smith went on TV and spoke, I cringed. When Urban Meyer came out, almost throwing the athletic director under the bus, I cringed because I was like, "Oh, this is getting dirty." But the further they went along, and there could be way more information out there that we know. What I think has been accomplished more than anything else is that Zach Smith was this rogue, person that worked for a university, and he was off on his own doing a ton of things that were probably not known. But one thing is, he got a DUI. He graded out at that time without telling the coaching staff, without telling the university that he had gotten arrested for that. He was graded out coach-wise. He had one of the highest grades he could get. So to me, you're dealing with a guy, and look, we all work with somebody that's got a bunch of shit going on in their life that you don't know about when he shows up at work every day.
Sure.
Right?
But we're all not the highest paid employee in the state of Ohio.
Well, okay, that's fine. So we're going to blame him for what an adult couldn't control himself? And I still go back to, this isn't the average adult on the average coaching staff at the average university either.
Well, right, but doesn't that put more onus on – I mean – Look,
I think it puts more onus on the university, not just Urban Meyer.
I'm not trying to – but I'm not trying to be the judge or the jury here. But we had an allegation in 2009 that Urban admitted he knew about it, personally addressed, and said, "You're a young couple, work it out." Right?
Right.
And then we have multiple incidents beyond that. And you're right, maybe he did totally hide them. But it adds up to the point that here we are having an investigation, paying $500,000 to figure out was Urban covering up for enabling this to go on. And you're right, this is a black mark on the whole university, not just on the family or on the football program or all of that.
All I'm saying is this. If the kid's grandfather wasn't who the kid's grandfather is, none of this happens. We wouldn't be having a conversation. I'm pretty sure of that. Whether it be Urban Meyer's love for Earl Bruce, whether it be the university's love for Earl Bruce. I just think that it plays out differently because of who his grandfather was. And I think people may have looked the other way. But I will say this. If you're not arrested and it's not a police record of you being arrested, it's kind of hard to know everything that's going on in everyone's life.
Sure. It is. It is. That begs the question, and I'm not sure this is 100% yes, but as a leader of people and as a manager of people, you got to know to an extent, right? And this is where the gray area is, because I'm sure that your bosses know a lot of what's going on in your life. You don't tell them everything. You're not required to. You wouldn't want to, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But, in each year evaluation or every 2 years, I don't know what contracts you sign or shit, I don't even know who you work for half the time, right? But right. But part of this No, you've been squeaky clean, right? Like, you haven't been in trouble, at least to my knowledge, and I've never lied on this podcast,
Right.
knock on wood. But, like, part of the evaluation of on and on of where you stand in the company, where you're going in your life, like, your life plays into that, right? Like, this isn't a job. When you have a career, your life plays into it. When you have a job, it doesn't. Your life is separate, right? You have a career
Right.
that this plays into it, and yeah, like I said, we're getting to the point of preachy, of gray area, of whatever. I'm not saying they should do one thing or the other. I don't know, but the fact that it got to this point, Dre, just my gut feel all along has been that Urban Meyer is going to lose his job. But as we sit here, 72-ish hours from the decision, I really don't know. I cringe for the reaction either way. I've cringed at Stacey Elliott, the ultimate enabler, being at the rally, of some of the things I've read, of how people have turned this into the media versus the common man, of all of that shit that goes on in this country today where you take a side on everything. Urban Meyer is a phenomenal football coach. Urban Meyer took a really good program at Ohio State and put it on turbocharge, and he's done it everywhere, and he has earned his status among football coaches. I just go back to that statement, and I feel like that he knew that he messed up, and he was angling for that, and we'll find out. I don't know what else we could say without talking in a circle.
No, we'll see. I think that's an opinion you gave at the end, and that's fair. I don't know what he did know and what he didn't know. I know that head coaches are used to sitting, especially coaches at his level, are used to sitting in front of a bunch of media and not telling the complete truth, whether it be about injuries, whether it be about their depth chart, whether it be about shitting players out left and right. You don't get a lot of, especially in the college football spectrum. And I think that's what Urban Meyer's going to stand by. And I'll just say this, if Urban Meyer goes, I think there needs to be more within the university that are gone as well.
And I think there would be. I mean, the techs I'd pay for, Dre, are the ones between the other coaches, because if this guy was doing this shit in the office, and
right.
We heard that on and off the record,
Right.
What you're right. I think Urban and Gene's jobs are at stake, as they should be, and I think other people's jobs are at stake, as they should be, if this stuff bears out to be true. But I think what's going on here and why it's so hard is you're talking about. You just mentioned it. It's not that he just maybe or maybe didn't lie, or the size of the lie, because he's acknowledged that. It's what was he enabling, what was really going on, and it's what was being swept under the rug, or what wasn't. So there's a lot of layers here. I think Ohio State handled it well, and I think whatever the decision on Wednesday will, I know it will be well thought out and well researched, because President Drake at Ohio State knows what's at stake here.
President Drake starts about him, and now he's here.
Yeah, for his program, for his reputation, for all of these things here.
I was going to ask you, what is at stake for President Drake? Because I think the conversation he has to ask among the people that he's asking, if we blow this thing up, are we blowing it up for all the right reasons?
Correct.
What does it make us look like? And I was thinking I would love to hear that talk, because I think some people would go back and say, okay, what are we truly blowing this up over? A coach that was out of control, that was doing it, quote unquote, was doing whatever he wanted to do, however he wanted to do it. It's kind of, are we doing it because of one bad character? I'm sure there's other coaches throughout the nation that have had some not good stuff sent to the office. I'm sure there's some that have had extra affairs with other women. We'll see. I don't know. I just think it's fearful. I think Zach Smith is what he is. He probably never get another football coaching job. I've never met him. I'm not going to sit here and value or devalue him off of the things I've read over the last month or the thoughts I had on him prior to this. But that's a hell of a guy to take down your whole program. And I think the embarrassment should have been having him a part of your program. What you knew about him and what he was doing, I think that's the question that I think is going to be left out there for them to figure out.
You keep saying the magic word to me, and that's your program, right? It's Urban's. We know it's Urban's. It's Gene's, and it's Michael Drake's too, right? So it's your program here, and to what extent was what not just damage done, but what were lies told and lives altered and priorities misplaced. That's going to be the answer, and we can't say anything else about it. So let's talk about another upstanding citizen like Josh Gordon. How about that?
Sure. Yeah, sure. That sounds
Look, okay. We've said this for years now. We're rooting for Josh Gordon, a person. We've said this for years now. Like, eventually you have to learn your lesson with Josh Gordon and with guys like it. And again, so he returns to camp, but before we even find out that the NFL is dictating the terms and that he was returning to camp but not to practice and not necessarily to football, maybe for 2 days, maybe for 2 weeks, maybe for 2 months. Here again, we have victory laps from the Browns. We'll never freaking learn. This is a guy's life that's not right. But here we are shooting off the fireworks and the firework emojis because he's showing up to do his job. Some shit you're supposed to do. So, guys.
It's the same thing we just talked about with Ohio State.
Yes. So, guys.
You let one rogue character drive the bus.
The Browns, and hopefully this is the right thing, have stood by Josh Gordon for many reasons. And for, like I said, for a lot of the reasons for what he costs them and what he could potentially give them, they had no reason to abandon him, right? And it's clear that going back a year now, the Browns, the NFL, people that work in treatment, people that are around Josh Gordon, all worked together to cut a deal to get him back that wasn't by the book, right? Because by the book, he was out of chances already. And so he comes back. So we get the statement, and then we get a little bit of, well, the league's involved here. He's gone for 26 days or something like that, and we get the league is involved. The league is overseeing this. So hopefully that's a good thing. Hopefully that just means passing the test, completing the hours, whatever, and Josh Gordon can get to work. We know from what came out last week with the child support, he's got a lot of shit going on in his life. We knew some of that. I mean, this is one child support case. He has another kid of the same age that's out there. We know he's on strike 11. Good for the NFL for working with him. Let's do this. But the Browns, he's on the 90-man active roster, so the Browns have to judge this in a football case for some ways, and he's not yet available to play football, and the track record says we're not sure when or if he'll be available to play football. And here again, you have the coach that makes up different rules for different situations, saying, well, he's not guaranteed to start if he gets right. Well, we know that's another lie, right? So I just want to say, temper the expectations on Josh Gordon, for one, because we've done this dance many, many times before. And two, there are two ways, guys, that Josh Gordon will win. And it's not showing up for work on August 18th. It's not that. It's 10, 15 years from now, Josh Gordon says, I've seen the light. I beat the demons. I was able to have a career. I was able to do this. I'm able to share my message now to hopefully save the next kid. And B, from the football standpoint, because he's a football player, 90-man football team, it's that he helped the Browns win, which he has done zero of that so far. So please, root for Josh Gordon, but pump the brakes on acting like that he is El Savior, because the first 6 times he has not been El Savior. Thank you.
Me to save his kids. You want to talk about baseball?
Yeah, baseball.
I got nothing to say about it.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah. I think I said it all.
To me, even me having a conversation about it is too much. I don't want to talk about a guy that's played 10 games, 5 years. He has no accountability to his team or to his teammates. So,
okay, good. But I want you to chime in with the baseball part of this, Dre, because the Indians have 10 days to make another move, and they don't have to. Well, they might have to, but it doesn't need to be a major move, right? But there's a possibility.
Yeah, they don't have to, but they probably need to.
Yeah, right. And there's a possibility with teams falling off the cliff that it could be a major move, right? Because the Indians are on year 4 of being all in, so it might happen, right? It might. This is just me reading Twitter. This isn't me knowing anything, because me and you don't talk about baseball off the air. We just don't.
Bob here, I'll give it. Bob Nightingale, who works at USA Today, tweeted out last night with the Giants falling apart. Andrew McCutcheon can still be out there. That's a lot of money. I don't see the Indians taking in a ton of money. Also mentioned he mentioned McCutcheon. Who was the other? McCutcheon and Donaldson. Donaldson still barely can run. But the Donaldson, the Indians thing has been out. It's just like one of those. It's been out there. One of those rumors just won't go away. Usually when a rumor won't go away, with Mark Shapiro being there, it's been talked about. But hell, Donaldson hasn't played all year long. I mean, it's sexy to talk about. So sure, something big could happen. There's no guarantee. With the Leonis Martin injury and him being out, obviously, the Indians right now currently are depending upon, Greg Allen's actually, as we speak, is on an 11-game hit streak, and pulled his weight this week. Busting tomorrow. I mean, we're not going to see Chris Sale, but we'll see how he works through that. I think the Indians are in a weird situation because not only do they need to possibly get another, match or another guy in the outfield for this year, but they don't really have any outfielders for next year. For all the crap the Indians have taken and Michael Brantley's taken from the Indians re-signing him last year, he's a free agent next year. And, for as much as people talk shit about how much he's making, he's probably going to make a lot more next year and the following year. Because he's basically made the whole season. There's 40 games left. He's put up some pretty damn good numbers. He's been an all-star again. So good move by the Indians, but what do you do going forward? Because there's no guarantee that he's going to be here after this season. So they have their hands tied a little bit, but I think at the same time they can go to management and say, okay, not only do we need a right fielder and center fielder today, but we got to go to spring training in 8 months. And I think for fans, you don't have to think like this, but when you're in upper management, you have to think like this. What the hell's our outfield going to be not only today, but what's it going to be 8 months from now? Do we start trying to configure that now, or do we wait till the offseason where the price may be way higher, and we may have to sign out of our ass to try to get somebody that may not be as good as we can get right now? I don't know where Andrew McCutcheon is. We'll just use him as an example. Obviously, he's a former MVP, former Gold Glover. Seemed in Pittsburgh fell out of favor pretty quick. They also had 3 really talented outfielders that were young and cheaper that they could fill in for him, and they have. But I think the Indians have to kick the tires to see where exactly he's at, what he can possibly bring. I know Adam Jones is not even here this weekend with the Baltimore Orioles. He's already kind of said he wants to stay in Baltimore and take care of the special things that are going on in his life. So maybe it's just another small move, maybe it's another Martin move, but I think they have to keep looking at this point in time.
Fair. It's kind of, Dre, the equivalent of this is just a loose one, but when the Browns make those trades for guys 5 days before actual free agency starts, because
right.
you're going to be giving up something, right, to get those guys. But so if it's a major player, it's not going to be a rental, right? It's going to be a guy that's under control for a couple years, and you're just getting a jump start on next year in addition to trying to make the chase right now. Correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean that's what it is. Hey, can they go to the playoffs as they are right now? Sure. And I look there, and we've talked about this before. And I love when I hear the easiest thing that you can say about the Indians. Oh, they need outfield help. They got the best infield in baseball. They got the best starting rotation in baseball. And in the bullpen, despite the numbers, and I hate doing this, but you got to do it. The bullpen's been pretty damn good since the All-Star break. They had 2 terrible, horrible months, and that's going to ruin and skewer the ERA for the bullpen. But if Miller gets back, and with Brad Hand here now, Cody Allen seems like to be through his funk, you still will take your chances. And I know they're 18 games behind Boston or whatever else, but that may not matter. But going into action today, for all year long, we've all thought that we would just start off the playoffs in Houston. I think they're 4 games behind Houston for number 2 in the AL. The Oakland A's have caught the Houston Astros. It's going to be a fun last 6 weeks, not because the Indians have anything to prove, but there's a good chance they can catch what's a team in the West. And I think the wild card can change 2 or 3 times as well. So the American League is, we know Boston's in, we know the Indians are in, we think Houston's in. Otherwise, you start to be some things that could happen, which makes it fun.
Well, right, it adds a little drama, right? Because it's not like the Indians making the World Series or not is not going to be decided by home field, but they could get it. And you're right, everybody assumed, going back to July 1st, okay, well, we're just on this march to where it's going to be Indians at Astros to start, and now that's anything but certain. So it does add a little drama. So, look, we've been over this a million times on this pod, but I want to say this, and this is, when the Indians, if they're after a guy or 3 guys, right, they got to look at how they fit in how they'd buy in, because you're bringing them into a locker room that's established. And it got a little bit shaken up on July 28th or whatever. But your core guys are there, and your core guys have been there for years, and that is one reason, besides the pitching, that you think you can win in October, right? Because you know what these guys are. They've been through it before.
For sure.
The Browns, as they are every year, are kind of starting from scratch. And they added, really, really experienced guys to the locker room who have seen some shit in the NFL. In Tyrod Taylor, Jarvis Landry, Chris Hubbard, TJ Carey, guys like that. But culture in pro sports, guys, it's about winning. It's about having better players. And it's about having guys who are from different backgrounds and at different stages of their career and playing for different things. It's about getting them to buy in on certain things at certain times and setting that tone. So, the Browns and Dez Bryant, it's dead for now. It may not be totally dead because we don't want to know. The Browns have let Josh Gordon hang around the locker room at times and hover over it at others. They've had other things go on. But, talking about culture, it's just not what you do in high school football or in small college basketball. It's just different in pro sports. And I think what you're trying to create more than culture is expectations. And so you go collect talented players, right? And then you hope like hell that most of them set the right example, right? And you hope the guys, and you're around a pro sports team every single day, Dre, you hope the guys that are a little off, that maybe don't get along, that maybe do keep the manager and the general manager up at night, you hope that they stay locked in, and as they're counting their money and looking at and doing what they got to do, they show up every day and hit line drives like you pay them to, or field ground balls, or throw strikes, or make threes, or whatever it is, like you show them to. So getting good players is the most important part, guys, because the Steelers, obviously they have a culture, but it's been sustained because they've been able to have 10 or 12 of the best players in the league on their team every year for 10 of the last 12 years, right? Yeah. So the Browns are still on that experimentation stage.
Wait, let me say something else on this.
Okay.
As I hear you say that, I agree with what you're saying. But their history of culture, I think, plays into it as well. Because all these teams, and I think this is all pro sports, and I think I agree with your culture talk that we had last pod. And I agree with what you said there, especially when you go to, and I'll just name like 5 franchises. Hell, we're going there with LeBron. Even if it's fake and it's false and it's not there. But he sees the Lakers as this winning legacy because of what they've done over the last 50 years. The Boston Celtics have that aura that's around them. The Steelers have it because when you walk into their facility, you see, 6 Super Bowl championship bust. There are organizations, the Yankees, I hate to say it, but they walk differently, they feel differently because of all their championships. I think there is something to going to certain organizations where the expectation is to be the best. And I think that brings out something in the best players. And if it doesn't, you get pushed out even quicker. Yeah, you're right about Pittsburgh. They keep getting the top 10 players. They keep getting – Ben Roethlisberger wasn't looked at as that. No one thought he would be this good this long. Antonio Brown was a 4th-round pick. I think, yes, they are talented. Yes, they're in the right situation. But I do think the culture or what they stand for means something, right? Like when you get recruited to go to Ohio State, the expectation is I'm going to be one of the best players in the country, and if not, I'm not going to play. Like when you get recruited to go to Kent State, it's I hope I can play. When you go to Ohio, like as a freshman, you're like, man, at Ohio State, you're like, man, I hope I can be on special teams, and just run down on a kickoff. Like Kent, it's like, shit, I better start right away. I just think there's a different standard that you feel like you have to live up to when you go to certain their organizations. I think the Browns, and I've heard Tyrod Taylor say this, they're building that because there is no standard to what a Cleveland Brown is. We said this when Mike Pettin put up play like a Brown. Everybody was like, well, what the fuck is that? What is play like a Brown? I think there is standards in certain places. When you go to New England, you know that it's not about you anymore. You got to give up yourself for the betterment of the team, or you won't be there. There is no standard in Cleveland right now, and that's not me beating anybody up, but it does play into the Josh Gordon situation. It does play into do you bring in Dez Bryant? Do you not bring in Dez Bryant? Do you let Jarvis Landry try to embarrass all of his teammates in a room? I think all those things are all not questionable in a bad way, but they're questionable because these certain things don't have to happen in other cities because they already have that
I agree. So I think that's exactly what I'm saying, and that you have to win first, right, to set the culture. You have to do that. I think at the lower levels you can say, hey, we only won 4 games this year, but I really feel good about what we're doing because so-and-so, yeah, he averaged 10 points, but he was kind of a shithead, so he's moving on, and that's good. The younger guys, they're not great, but they really worked and they really got better, and that sets the culture for going forward. Sure, in pro sports, you got to win, right? You're right. The Yankees have that feel. Now, they also have the money to go get Judge and Stanton, so it makes it feel, better, but they've won. And the Steelers have always won. They've been in the playoffs, crazy number. New England's been in the playoffs for 15 years, -1. So all of those things. So the Browns, this experimental year, they're trying to win. They're trying to set that so as they go forward, then it's different expectations. I mean, let's be honest. Guys, they got Demarius Randall, Taylor, and Landry on giveaways. Giveaways by their old teams for whatever reason. Salary reasons, culture reasons, probably all the above in some cases. And so you get to that point where now you can get the next tier of guy once you've won, once you've set that. And I watched this Browns team, and there are obvious flaws, but it looks like an NFL team, and it didn't for the last 2 or 3 years. It just didn't. So, there's an opportunity, I think, to win 6 or 7 games. I think more realistically, it's 4 or 5. I watch Hugh and Greg, and not just on Tuesday nights, and I wonder, boy, how many are they going to give away for whatever reason. But you have to win first to set that culture, and more importantly in pro sports is expectations. What do you expect? And we just said it. People here would be thrilled with 5-11. Dre'd be singing like a you-know-what, right? And that would mark huge progress. They've won 4 games in 3 years. 5 would be great progress. You get to the next step. So I just want everybody to understand expectations to be tempered. And I want to say this a little bit in defense of Hugh, and I almost can't believe I'm saying that. He needs to get his stuff straight in terms of what he says his expectations are, what culture they want it to be, because he just says it's time to win. That doesn't answer anything. And then he's clearly has different rules and expectations for different players when they have those issues. That doesn't accomplish anything. But the Browns...
I'm going to stand up for Hugh real quick.
Okay.
And I can't believe I am either. You don't have to do shit to you guys and for that TV show on Tuesday nights. The standard that has to come through, and it's only going to show up on Sundays, is what they truly believe inside that clubhouse. Because it's a statement I said to you before we even started this podcast today about coaches and the things. Oh, I said it on the podcast. The coaches are habitual liars in press conferences. I don't give a shit what Hugh Jackson says to Tony Grossi and to Zach Jackson. But he better give a shit what he's saying to everyone that's within his organization. Because Sundays at 1 o'clock, that's when you get told on. So, we run with these quotes, and I've said this for years to you. We run with all these quotes all the time from what we hear at different press conferences and things of that nature. That stuff doesn't really matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, those things don't matter what they said into a press conference. But what does matter is what they said on Monday morning in a meeting with their 90 men or with their 53 men on their team. So that's what matters most. Now, at some point in time, does Hugh have to come to a point where what he says in a press conference kind of matches how they play? Sure. But to get it right now, at this point in time, hey, Hugh's been all over the place in what he said all along. So I don't have any expectations from that. But the expectation does have to change when you keep making out your defensive coordinator to be this mad scientist. Well, you know what? In game 1, let's see how much of a mad scientist you are when Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown are breathing down your throat. That's when it matters. All this other stuff, he's not a good liar. I mean, that's, to me...
Well, yeah.
I don't know. But, I mean, that doesn't matter. Because, you know what? Neither is Belichick. But no one calls him on it because they win football games. And that's you know that. All these guys, Tomlin don't tell the truth every day in his press conferences. He tells you what he wants to tell you. And he wins games. So that doesn't become a problem. I would say most coaches in the NFL aren't telling you everything that's going on in their clubhouse or making sense of it.
Fair. I just, like I said, I'm just trying to say, like, I roll my. It's not just Hugh. Let me say this: it's not just Hugh that I roll my eyes at when we talk about culture, right? Because of what I'm. My larger point is win and then talk about it, right? Let it set itself, because all of a sudden the expectation next year has to be to make the playoffs, not to be high-fiving for 5-11, right?
For sure.
For
sure. Okay, but without winning, what should he say though?
Well, I understand there's some things he can't say, but I'll also.
Well, I'm asking you, as a guy that's won one game in 2 years that they've allowed him to come back, what should he say about culture? See, I didn't like when he was talking to Tyrod Taylor on the TV show, talking about all the bad habits they had and all the bad habits they need to break. I didn't like it because it's like, well, you're not a new coach, Hugh. He's a new quarterback, and you should be saying to him, over these last 2 seasons, this team, for whatever reason, has gathered some bad habits that we have to get rid of. Sometimes I didn't like that he kind of washed his hands of the bad, stuff that has gone nuts. But at the same time, what the fuck do we want him to say? He has to say something about building character or building a culture. What else can he say? Yeah, we suck, and that's how it's going to be until we win a game?
Well, doesn't that feel like it's the truth?
but and that goes back to what I said. You can't use the truth in those situations.
Well, sure. Well, look, I think what you're asking is where they are. It's
right.
This is unprecedented for a 1-31 coach to be back, and it's you want to go forward, and that you're going forward in life and football and podcasts and everything, right? But like when you haven't won and nothing you've said has come true, and you haven't set any expectation, I'm out of words. I'm never out of words.
But see, I think you're saying things, and look, the frustration of covering a 1-31 team is real. I'm not gunning for you. How do we know what I mean, come on, look at the roster they ran out there with you. And I'm not a Hugh apologist. Trust me. Come first. I'm not. But you saw what they ran out there 2 years ago.
Yes.
You saw what they ran out there last year. Were you surprised they only won one game? If I go down and I start seeing the names on the roster and the people they were throwing out there to play NFL, real football games, are you really surprised they were 1-31?
No, no one is.
No one is. So, and I don't want to, and I'm not sitting here running the Hugh train. What the fuck did we expect when they gave him one of the worst management teams in base that I've ever seen in football? One of the worst game plans ever when it came to acquiring players and having players. There's no excuse for it, but he had no chance. Now they've decided to keep him, and they've decided to try to build something. Because I will say this, at the end of the day, one of the biggest issues with the Browns has been changing coaches and changing the way you go about them for the last 15 years. No one's been able to establish who they are, what they are. You keep going back to culture, but it's a culture. When you really don't have any, when the person that's driving the players changes every 2 years, and the head coach changes every 2 years. I give the Browns credit, whether they pick the wrong guy to follow or pick the right off on. That's a great question. And I think that's a question we'll have all season long, especially in September if they lose a game because the coach is busy. And there's a good chance that could happen. Hell, it's a great chance it could happen, right?
All right.
So if they lose 3 or 4 games in September, October, because you be confident that we can all go off on all bases and say, okay, that was a bad move, and trying to build culture. Now, if they win a game or win 2 games early in the season, because the team believe in each other, they come together and they actually put a fourth quarter together. You got to look at management and come say, okay, maybe this is keeping us.
All right, we're losing you, so we're going to wrap this up here. One-word answer. 2 weeks into Hard Knocks. Good for Hugh Jackson or bad for Hugh Jackson?
Bad. Well, okay. No, you know what? I can't.
One-word answer. One-word answer.
On a head coach, it's not that easy. And I would say the first one, after seeing what he was going to with his family, I can't say it's bad.
Yeah, let me couch that by reminding you guys for the 100th time. It is a TV show. It is a highly edited TV show. It is a masterfully edited TV show, but it is a TV show. So they pick and choose what gets in there. I just think that there's a mandate. A Hard Knocks staple is highlighting the head coach because he is the head coach, right? He stands in front of the team. He stands in the middle of the circle. He's involved in every decision. And so that guy is going to be highlighted. Quick thing. Thank you guys to those of you who politely pointed out that there were some audio issues with the last podcast. Obviously, I don't hear. I was unaware, or I would have never put that up. So thanks to those who pointed it out. I just don't hear. I've been over this 100 times. To those of you guys who send us lectures on that stuff, I really prefer you go listen to another podcast. That's all I can say about that. Hey, 603brown.com, our friend Mike, he runs the Cheddar Bay Pick'em Contest. You're a junkie. If you are, I know a lot of you are, go over to 603brown.com and check it out. It's that time of year because real college football, believe it or not, is 6 days away. Shout out, as always, to Scene, to Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks for helping to make this thing happen. Football is in the air. Dre's firstborn is going to kindergarten this week. We're running out of summer, but football's around the corner. Any final thoughts, my friend?
Konnichiwa, Summer.
Yeah, good call. We'll see you next time on A to Z.